Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Three Body Problem, Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with the past stuff in China. Obviously, we start off at 69. I think that's where we had left off with Wenji in the past as well. Previously, but she's still working at that satellite facility and base and everything, and once again checking the signals. She's checking it like 8 hours a day because that's just like her work shift and stuff. So it's interesting because her and Yang, I forgot what started that conversation. Oh, right, because she wanted to get in contact with someone like I forgot what position he was, but this guy Peterson, but he lives in California, which Yang was like, that's probably going to get us in trouble, but luckily he was able to kind of do it on the low, and it turns out that basically around the same time, like, they were getting a signal, so Peterson and his group got a signal, like, in California. It's like the signal from, it was like an electromagnetic signal from Jupiter, and it was like 38 minutes. And then it took 38 minutes for them to get it, to travel from Jupiter to Earth. But in China, they registered a signal 13 minutes afterwards. And it turns out the reason why is they didn't get the signal from Jupiter, they got a signal from the sun, and that's where it starts becoming an idea for Wenji, like, oh, we can use the sun as our amplifier, because what we're trying to, like, because they've been doing this for years, but it's not just them. The US and even Russia have been doing it. I think the way Yang was saying is like they've been even doing it even longer. But basically their signal, as Yang was kind of, well, when she's saying like our signal is not strong enough. Even as powerful as it is, the most powerful satellite signal we're sending out there is still not far enough to reach out there, because there was a whole conversation of basically like there are so many damn stars out there in the world, and if there are just as many stars that kind of connect the planets, like we're never going to be able to reach out there, because it's like, do we even know that there is life out there? And maybe we're just not hitting that signal far enough, and the sun can boost that. Effed up thing is that Yang decided to take this to their commanding officer, and he tried to make it seem like his idea, cutting out Wenji in general, and then Wenji had to come in, and he's like, their commanding officer's like, oh, so check his math and stuff like that, is it correct? And she didn't call him out, because I think it's a combination of like, I mean, she is respected enough to be here in her position, so I don't think I don't know if it would necessarily be a thing of because she's a woman, like it's easier for him to take credit for it than she. I mean, it's not like he's doing it for her sake, he's doing it for his sake. So it's not like well, this only way this work is going to be accepted if it's done by a man. I don't think it's that. I don't know what, like, once again, if it was like that, she wouldn't even be here in the first place. They recognize how skilled and smart she is, so so they would respect her opinion if she had said something. Even like he even has when she double checking quote unquote Yang's work, so like I said, it's just him just trying to like better. Like I knew he was up to something slick when he was like, yeah, we should report it. And I'm like, yeah, he tried to backstab her. He wasn't expecting her to get brought in to check his work. It's eventually she would have found out, but yeah, she didn't call you out because she's just like, it's whatever. I guess it's almost like, even if I don't get the credit for it, who cares? It's like, fine. Because she figures it means too much for you. You're probably going to just call me crazy. Like, there's ways around her not win. It's a lose-lose situation, so why even bother? I think it's from her perspective. But the commanding officer chews them out because of the symbolism of you pointing a satellite at the red sun, what that means to the people of China. Like, it's just, from a political standpoint, the people find, like, would the people even find out? But I guess on some level, it's like, what that, like, it seemed like a weird thing, but it's like, once again, I don't understand enough of China's circumstances, especially, I mean, in general, I don't know enough about China, like how a lot of China works, especially in this era, in the, like 69 and stuff. So like, just like, once again, the political ramifications of like the political symbolism of what the red sun represents, and us pointing a satellite at it. It's like, even saying like, if people found out about it, we would be executed. It's like, well, would anyone tell? I guess if someone's loyal enough to be like, whoa, the people at this facility doing some stupid crap, they're pointing a satellite at the sun, and it's like, you know what, the red sun, so, that kind of got shut down. You could tell it bothered Wenji, because it's like, right, we're on the cusp of something immaculate. And I think also all the stuff with her dad is really wants her to push the envelope more. So when no one's paying attention, she just turns the dials a little and moves the satellite and sends out a signal to the sun. And no one was the wiser. Obviously, she kept at this for like 8 years. I don't know. I guess like every time she was done, she would move it back. So it seems like no one knows what she's been up to for these past. Seems like she's been doing it for 8 years, or maybe she did it. Maybe all she did it that one time in '69 and doesn't do it again until '77, like basically at the end of the episode. So maybe she's only ever done it twice, or maybe she was doing it the entire time, the 8 years. That's unclear, you know. So we have that. And then eventually what was kind of interesting, and this ties into like the present day stuff, but I'm gonna keep that separate, but I want to draw this in, that obviously we had the conversation between Thomas and Clarence. And Clarence was talking about a message that like someone in a team in Ohio State received this message. It was only like 72 seconds or something like that. They received a signal and a message, and no one knows what it was, because no one was been able to decode it the entire time, except maybe the same signal was sent, like someone else might have received it in 77 in China, but Clarence is telling Thomas, like, yeah, it might not matter in the grand scheme of things. And then we got the rest of the past stuff with Wenji, where it turns out she ran into Mike Evans, because we found out from Clarence's perspective of what he's looked up, about Mike Evans' present day. It's like, right, he's very like anti-science. He's part of the 5G conspiracy. Like he funds a lot of like anti-vax stuff. So it's like everything science related. It seems like he's on the forefront, or at least pushing that to the forefront, like by backing it money-wise, which I was like, that's interesting. Especially when we're entered, like my brain immediately was like, wait, is he doing that all because of the current circumstances? Especially because we met him in 77, who he's played by Ben Schnetzer. I'm probably like butchering that. I'm so sorry. I knew him, like the one thing I've like seen him in prior to this was like he was in the TV show adaptation of Why the Last Man. Which I really liked. I'm so bummed I only got one season. I mean, I've never read the comics, so that was like my first introduction to like any element of the story. But anyway, tangents and all that aside, he's in China because he's trying to preserve this like very specific subspecies of bird. And it's because of like, I think a kind of a deforestation thing of like, oh yeah, like all these trees are getting cut down, and he's trying to like fight this uphill battle to save this species, because he's like, because it's like, oh, he's here to save lives. And she's like, human lives? He's like, oh, like, yeah. He's like, it's funny how when you say lives, everyone immediately thinks of human lives. But there are other lives on this planet, like animals and stuff. So he wants to save this one specific species. And it's kind of like, yeah, imagine that, like being responsible for one person being responsible for saving an entire species, which seems to be a larger thread that's going to like encompass the entire show with just everything that's going on. And so basically, it turns out they want to build a similar satellite facility here in this area, but I would also disturb all the work he's trying to do. But it's like, yeah, they're not going to ask permission because Mike Evans doesn't own this property. It's just it's up for them to grab. So, but Wenji, like, turns out they've read the same book. What was it, like The Silent Winds or whatever, the book she got a while back, like in episode 1 in the past. So she wants to help out as best she can. So she's trying to find another site for them to build something. But like Yang is like, right, they're not going to respond to that. Like, me and our commanding officer have chosen this place. It's probably more like he chose it and you kind of have to follow suit. There's no fighting that. There's no going against it. But it's also probably because Yang's in a position where it's like, yeah, I'm going to suck up to our commanding officer so I can put myself in a better position, because my attempt 8 years ago blew up in my face, and maybe I haven't made the progress in my military career like I wish I did. So, but either way, what was really interesting is that Wenji ends up meeting the woman who dealt the fatal blow to her dad, and it sounds like she's being kind of put into this labor position. And when Wenji meets her, her arm is missing, and now it's like, yeah, this, like, you could tell there's this conflict in her, because it's like, right, this is a woman who dealt the blow to my dad. She's the one that killed him, because her job wasn't to kill him. It's just you were supposed to like make an example of him, but you beat him. You beat him to death. But you dealt the final blow. It's like, yeah, you cracked my father's skull open with a belt. But it's like, yeah, here she is missing an arm, and here's where the conflict comes of, has she been punished enough? Who knows? But also, it's like, is a little bit of like, hey, here's karma. You killed my dad, but it's like you're still alive. You missing an arm, but her whole thing is kind of from her perspective. It's like, yo, like I did everything I was supposed to do, and what did they do? Like I was so young. And they put me in this position where I worked so hard till I was tired. I was sleeping on the floor, and like basically her arm got gangrene, and they had to cut it off. She's like, I was so young, but when she's like, I was a kid too when you cracked open my father's skull with a belt. And she doesn't repent for it. She doesn't. And when she's like, are you not going to repent for it? It's like, she's like, the only reason why you're alive is because of your mind. If it wasn't for your mind, you're lucky that your father had a mind on him, and because of that, you luckily have one, and you found a better position to be in. That's where you are right now. But me, look at me. I'm here because I didn't have like any other like really like useful skills. She's like, if I had a mind like yours, I wouldn't be here. Like if you didn't have your father's mind, you would be in this position right now. But it's like, yeah, you're saying like my life would be better if I had a mind. Look at my father. My father had a mind, and it still didn't stop him from dying. But yeah, she's like, yeah, if I had the choice, I'd kill your father all over again. It's like, she's like, I would sift him down like wheat. It's like, Jesus. It's like, you're not going to repent. She's like, no one repents. I think that's what really pushed her to go like, you know what? Screw this world, and just like the twistedness of it. I don't know if she truly believes that she's all about it. Like I would do it again in a heartbeat, or is it just her fronting because maybe she is haunted by that. We haven't seen her in these past couple years. She could have been haunted by it. Maybe she even feels like losing her arm. She's trying to keep up this bravado. It's like you lie to yourself, and you lie to yourself so much it becomes the truth. Maybe she does feel bad about what she did, but she can't admit it because the pain of what I did would crush her. Because she was fairly young, and she still is fairly young. So it's like it might be too much for her to really bear the weight of that. And so it's easier just to be like, yeah, I'd do it again, even though she probably wouldn't. Either way. Or maybe she is all about that, and she's like, nah, I'm dead serious. I'm dead ass. I would do it again in a heartbeat. But either way, that influences Wenji to the point that she, like, receives the signal, the one that got talked about in 77. She receives the message, and it says, do not answer. You're lucky I saw the message. I am a pacifist. Do not answer this, because if you answer this, we will come to your planet and we will conquer you. Do not answer. And Wenji like readjusts the satellite, and she answers. She's like, come here, conquer us, because we need to be saved. I will help you conquer. Because for her, it's just that interaction with the woman who killed her mom. I think it was just the final nail in the coffin, because just for her, it's like, this world is broken. It's messed up. We need to be like, things have to change. And it's like, maybe this world is already effed as it is. Like maybe we deserve to be conquered. We're not good, just like the fact is we're not repenting creatures. And once again, it's like her, I think just, and also the scientific element of like, oh, what's out there, like I think that's driving it. But I do feel like it's more so drawn upon her anger right now for like that woman, because it's like that interaction happened at the wrong time. Who knows how Wenji would have potentially responded based on, if she hadn't had that conversation with the woman who killed her mom. I mean, her dad, sorry. So, but Wenji, it's the question like, okay, is she going to send the message? And we see that she did. So I'm like, she's the one. I mean, to be fair, if it wasn't her, someone else would have responded. She just happened to be the one to get the message. Just like that person's like, you're lucky I'm the one watching because I'm a pacifist. The rest of the people here are not like that. We will come to your planet and we will conquer you. So it's like, did Wenji set this all in motion? Is she feeling that present day with everything that's going on? The ramifications now are like, oh, your daughter's dead. Like, and this all connects to this larger scale of everything going on. Did you set this all in motion decades ago? Did you know this was coming? Were you expecting it? Well, have you been waiting for it the entire time? That becomes the question, because present day, obviously, we're dealing with a lot. We catch up with Augie. Obviously, everyone around the world is like, yo, those stars blinking out. That was nuts, right? That's crazy. You have Saul trying to justify it by being like, yeah, it was a deep fake. I'm like, how the fuck do you deep fake real life to the point that everyone around the world, it's not like, oh, only you guys in London saw it. The entire fucking world is talking about something that doesn't make sense. Blinking on and off stars, like that doesn't make any sense. Once again, Saul's trying to justify it. He's like, right, either like, the science wrong or it's a scam. So he's trying to justify it. I guess he just, it seems like Saul's supposed to represent those type of scientists who are not willing to go beyond their own, like science is a science for a reason. This is factual. Like, it's just someone, it's, it's science versus God type of thing of, because there are some people who exist in the middle. There are some people who are all about science. There are some people who are all about religion and God. There's some people who are religious who also believe in science. There are science who believe in religion. Like I said, there's different layers to these spectrums, and then there's people in the middle. It seems like Saul is on the extremist side of, like, it's all about science, God. There's no, like, answer to that. There's an explanation for everything. He's one of those type of people, and I think that's what Saul's, and it's just like your short-sightedness, your willingness to kind of just stay in the box instead of really fully thinking outside of the box, willing to accept there is something else out there, even though, like, there's just some weird shit, but he believes it's bullshit. But, like, the conversation he had with Wingy, I thought was so interesting, because she's like, oh, do you really, you think it's like, who could be doing this? It's like, she knows, as we can tell, but it's like, has she been waiting all these years? Like, once again, we don't know if she got a response from her answer all those years ago, but it's like, did it take this long? But obviously these scientists and stuff dying has been happening for a while. So this is where I was talking about, like, it's interesting where it's like the stuff in the past is having the most massive effect, because it does seem like it's the starting off point, because all these scientists who are dying, because let me finish where I was at. Like, Augie, like, whatever, everything she was building on, it was like a nanotechnology thing she was on. I guess that was supposed to be kind of her, like, literally making technology that could, I guess, supposed to symbolize, like, hey, it can cut through a diamond, like, such not, like, thin, almost invisible nanofibers could, like, cut through stuff. But the moment the project was shown to be a success, the ticker is clicking down. She's got minutes left, and then she decides to quit the project. And in that moment, the moment she shuts the project down, the countdown disappears. I'm like, what the fuck? So then, like, Clarence comes to visit her and kind of explains everything of, like, right, you quit your project. That woman you met last episode, yeah, like, so here's some security cam footage. Yeah, the woman's not there. It's like, no, she was there. It's like, no, I believe you, because your lighter doesn't work. I just saw it firsthand. Look at this. Oh, your lighter doesn't work. All of a sudden, ooh, your cigarette just gets lit out of nowhere. Someone scrubbed this footage of removing that woman. It's like, that's insane. Like, whoever this woman is, she's got some powerful people on her side. Part of me is like, could she be an alien that just isn't hooked up? Maybe she wasn't scrubbed for the footage. Maybe she just can't be captured on footage. Maybe, I mean, it might be a technological thing, because obviously it's like, you know how, like, a mask, like, there's certain, like, technology that can mask you on certain cameras and stuff. That might be extreme. I don't know if that really exists in real life, or whether that is just like a science fictional thing. Probably is just a science fiction. There might be some real science to it, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? So either they did just scrub her from the footage, maybe she just has something on her that blocks her from, I mean, because it clearly looks like she was deleted from the footage, like she didn't even exist. So, because Augie's already going through it thinking she's crazy, but then, like, the countdown disappears, and then she finds out, obviously she's not the only one that's had this countdown, and Clarence is like, yeah, other scientists in your position have quit. Either they quit like you, or they quit like Vera and, kill themselves, sadly. So that's what this is all about. This is about not answering. The countdown is about, if you continue down your path of work, it's going to trickle down, and it's going to lead to, it's like, once again, you don't want things to reach zero, because I guess it's almost supposed to be, I thought it was supposed to be like the doomsday clock, which it still could be, is what I thought the countdown was, but we're kind of a little doomsday clock and a little Loki. We're redlining here. And what I mean by that, if you've never seen Loki, that was all about the multiversal stuff. That basically you start, once, like, these timelines start splitting and stuff like that, it gets to the point that once they start redlining, there's no going back. You can't just, like, stop the timeline. It's kind of like that. I think once you've started the domino effect of a certain technology existing, like, once you complete it, like, if you have a certain amount of time to stop it before it redlines, and whatever these aliens or whatever are like, oh, okay, cool, you're doing that? Like, I mean, are the aliens doing that, or is there someone on Earth who might be an alien trying to stop them from going too far? Because if you do this, you're going to attract the wrong type of attention, and it's going to lead to ramifications later on for your planet type of situation. I don't know. the sad thing is, circling back to Augie, she wants to, with everything going on, going as seer crazy as she is, she wanted to talk to Saul about it, but he wasn't reliable. He was out partying. When he said, like, oh, let's drop some acid, I thought he was like, oh, you're just saying that. Oh, it seems like you legitimately, you might have been saying that figuratively and you guys were just drunk and stuff. But Augie got pissed because it's like, I wanted to talk to you about this, but you continue to not be reliable. You didn't pick up your phone. Because he's like, oh, man, everything that she's going through, like the countdown's going, but she had to shut down her project. And she's like, I'm most likely going to get fired because I can't really explain to everyone I shut down this project because this countdown told me to, because this woman told me to. And he's like, yeah, that's fucked. And she's like, really? After everything I'm going through, I try to call you and talk to you, and you finally show up like the next day, and what do you have for me? It's fucked up. That's all you have to say. And for her, it's like, you are still you are acting like a child. She's like, it used to be charming and cute. It's not cute anymore. You know, it's like you haven't grown up. You're still, that's where like almost like the immaturity of it all, where it's like, yeah, you are this smart person, but you're not willing to kind of go outside of your scope. That's where it seems like there is something between him and Augie. Whether it was like it was something serious, or maybe it's a will they won't they situation, but whatever the case may be, it's definitely blown up in his face. Sorry, the way he's kind of going about this. So on the other side of the episode too, we also have Jack and Jen. First and foremost, Jen has continued to play the game. She meets some NPC characters, and now so I was like, right, so it is legitimately a game, but it's about solving a riddle. And basically, in this world, you got to learn how to track the sun as kind of solving this riddle, because the thing that Jen was experiencing last episode when she first put it on happens again. So she follows this guy who's like the Count and his follower. And it's like, oh, like Jen can't use her own name. She has to be, and she comes up with the name Copernicus. So as they're going along to meet the Emperor, the sun starts rising and it creates this massive heat. All the ice and snow melts, but there's not enough shelter for everyone, so the Count pushes the follower out, and then she begins like mummifying, but it's because she's like, it's an extreme dehydration of it's so hot that people dehydrate. It's like, it's so unnerving looking at it. I was like, Jesus, like, what the fuck is happening? You just said she's not gonna die, but it's like, no, she's not the first one. It happens to everyone. Their plan is, once we get outside of a chaotic era, once we kind of really understand the system and can kind of predict it, that we're going to go into a more peaceful era where everything's calm and understandable, then we rehydrate everyone. So we have to figure out the cycle of all of this, figure out when, because the whole point is, as long as there is one survivor, everyone survives, because that can be that one person can rejuvenate and rehydrate everyone. So Jen brings Jack in on this and tells him about it, and you know, he experiences it himself and immediately gets his head cut off because the person's like, hey, you don't belong here, and kills him repeatedly. It's so interesting because you're like, right, Jen never had to suffer any of that, so the question then becomes, why is Jack? And I guess it's because now, and we find out later on, Jack ends up getting his own. Which is interesting that all of a sudden, now Jack didn't even know this exists, and all of a sudden, after trying it on, he now has one of his own, and now it's registered to him. This one that they were using is registered to Jen, so it's like, right, you can't use another, it's basically like, hey, you can't use another player's account. So you have to make your own account, but you can't use, like, the device is a one account type of thing, which is interesting considering Vera was the one using it before Jen. But I guess like the moment Vera died, or maybe she completed it and upon completion her character data was deleted, or maybe the moment Vera died in real life, it automatically deleted her data. Who knows? We don't know how far Vera got into this whole thing. We just know she died like the day, like she was playing it like the day before she died or something like that, right? So that's why I guess like Jen has become registered as a new user, whichever case it may be. But yeah, like Jack getting sent his own. What's also interesting too is that Clarence has their phones bugged. It's like, you're an intelligence division, like I guess you can just like do that. Once again, like the privacy of it all and stuff like that, I'm like, I don't know how that rolls in other countries. That's such a slippery slope here in this country. Like, you're not supposed to like bug people illegally. You have to get warrants and stuff like that, and nothing necessarily warranted him being able to do that. Once again, this is in London, so I don't know like what the laws are in London, especially like depending on the higher the agency is on the totem pole, what they're allowed to do. Like, once again, a lot of the laws vary so differently about what people can and cannot do from country to country. I mean, obviously it varies here, even state to state type of situation. So I don't know. That's interesting that he was just like, he has it bugged, so he knows they have the helmet. I don't know if he's quite put it together that it's the same device he's seen on one of the dead science people. So really quickly, I love that Clarence was talking to Thomas. He's like, yeah, you've been smoking in the office. The guy that reported it, I ended up firing him because it's like, yeah, obviously he's so focused on that and not our adversaries. And Clarence is like, I wish you didn't fire the guy over that. Which I thought was so interesting, because I thought last episode Thomas knew that this was an alien thing, but he doesn't quite, I guess he doesn't know what to fully believe. He just thinks like this is an adversary, this is an enemy attack. Like, he made that clear last episode, but I thought he was like, oh, aware of aliens and stuff. But he's thinking like, he seems like he's open to the idea of like, okay, there's something about little green men that might be involved in this. But I think he's open on all fronts, but he thinks this is some enemy we have to be weary of, that this is some kind of attack. Someone to be able to kind of blink out the stars like that. It's some kind of attack or some kind of warning from someone. But let me circle back and continue what I was saying. Either way, like I said, Jack got his own device, and because of that, he's registered. It's even got a different setting, whereas Jin kind of has like a very old school China dynasty aesthetic and vibe to hers, whereas Jack has a more, not even, I don't know if Middle Ages would even be the right word, but like a very old school, like it's the settings of the game, the overall objective is the same, but the setting and attire obviously changes based on you, which I love that Jack, because he thought the guy was going to come beat him up and kill him like the woman was, so he kept punching the dude, and I love that whole situation. And like, oh, you have to change your name, you can't go by Jack, and Jack punches the guy again. I'm like, very different video game experience than Jin. So I thought that was interesting. I do love there being kind of levity to this whole situation, especially like the storylines revolving the game, especially because when Jin went there, the Count is presenting himself in front of the Emperor, and it's like, cool, I'm gonna make this thing that's going to be able to predict the stages of the sun, and it's like, cool, he uses it, and it turns out, hey, this is going to be 8 days more for the sun, and then after that it's 63 years of a golden age, like everything's going to be perfectly fine. And so it's like, oh cool, we have to wait for those 8 days. And they look to Jin, wait for those 8 days, and she's like, what? He's like, put your hand on the ground, and that'll accelerate time. And it's like, oh, once again, like the goofiness of it, I love like the levity in that moment. And he passed the 8 days, seems like everything's fine, great, because Jin was having this conversation of, what was it, basically mysticism versus science, because she's saying like, right, that's from like a more mystical standpoint, like the laws of physics would probably explain things better on when we're not in a chaotic era, but the Emperor was more so listening to the Count, and because of that they decided to rehydrate everyone, which honestly that sequence is actually crazy. Like when you look at it, like people underwater and just like their mummified bodies like getting hydrated again, and just like how transparent their skin is to the point you can see like their bones and stuff. I was like, oh, it's trippy and weird, but also at the same time, I love that sequence. Everything worked out. The follower is happy because he's like, oh, Copernicus, you cared about me. You saved me. He's like, yeah, I promised I would. Why would I forget about you? But sadly, the chaotic time isn't over. And instead of extreme heat, we get the opposite. I mean, to be fair, everything had been scorched before, and now the age has, like, chaotic age has continued, and now it's a deep freeze again, and everyone's outside and everyone gets frozen, including follower. She gets frozen to the point that by the time Jin gets to her, she touches her and her entire body shatters. Not everyone froze like that. Some of the people, you just see their bodies like covered in snow, which I'm like, I feel bad for those actors, because like, not unless those were CG, not unless that was all like CGI. But I'm like, if those are just like real people in the snow covered in, I'm like, I mean, it might not actually be snow, but it's like because you're butt naked. So I'm like, oh, I feel bad. Like, oh, that had to be a weird scene to like film. If those were like not just like CG, like not like some, if it wasn't like VFX that kind of created the people in the snow. But I'm like, it probably wasn't legitimate snow, but it's still probably stuff you had to clean yourself. Like, oh, I hope I got all of this out of my genitals and my crack, you know. But yeah, it turns out this civilization 137 wasn't saved, but Jen, like because she did the whole mysticism versus science, she's able to go on to the next level. It's like hopefully you'll be able to save the next civilization. And then we take a zoom out, and it turns out she's being watched. I don't know if that character she's meeting is like the avatar of the person who's watching, or is it like an AI that this person programmed. I don't know if he's like, that's like, oh, that's my character model in game. Even though like the character models always reflect you. Jen looks like Jen, Jack looks like Jack. There's not much customization you can do. So I'm assuming maybe she's just an AI program, or he's working with someone else who's doing it. It's like, well, whatever the case may be, it seems like that's on Earth. So that's why I'm like, right, this does seem like Earth-based operation, but it could be aliens on Earth doing this, because Jack even said in himself that this technology is like 100, maybe even 150 years away from where they currently are. So for this to exist is kind of wild, you know. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where that ultimately ends up going. Like I said, that seems like, because the riddles they're solving, it does seem like that probably does correspond to whatever is out there, like being like, yo, don't respond, do not answer. Not unless it's a situation of, hey, whatever's coming from the outside, like, you need to prepare yourself on Earth. We need people who have some solution. But once again, Vera, who played this game, unalived herself. Some of the people who are connected to this game had died. So it's like, maybe there's an answer here you're not supposed to, and you're like, you don't want to be the person who lives with the answer, because you're very living with this answer, meaning that you could accidentally slip up and someone could find out you know this answer and come after you, and that could so it's easier just for you to die with the answer in Vera's case. I mean, once again, I think it's an important thing for her that her last words even to Saul being, do you believe in God? Do you think there's a God, or something like that? So that's interesting. And then finally, we also have the actually, two more things I need to cover. We find out that Will has pancreatic cancer, and he's like, yeah, basically all they can do at this point is make me feel comfortable. I've got like 2 to maybe 6 months left to live, but Jack is not having it. It's like, I've got all this money from my company, we're gonna fight this. All right, you're just gonna take it and accept it. He's like, you fell out of a like science program because you thought you weren't smart enough. You didn't go after Jen because you thought she was way out of your league, and now this you're giving up. Jack's like, do not give up, and telling him to eat. He's like, but I'm not really hungry. He's like, please. And just in that moment, not just even about eating, it's about just try, my dude. Just try in general, you know? And I think for Will, it means a lot that like Jack is pushing him so hard. It's sad too, because he was just in class having the whole multiverse conversation, which I've never really heard the multiverse conversation had to that extent of, yeah, like there are many, because of the multiverse, there is an infinite number of possibilities, infinite number of yous out there. And that even on some level, there's something beautiful and kind of sweet about the notion of, even if your consciousness disappears from this world, there is an infinite number of worlds out there where your consciousness does exist. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be variations of you across the multiverse, but it's still kind of sweet and kind of, there's something ensuring and nice to know, like, hey, that even if I'm going in this world, maybe some world out there, there's some version of me still out there. You know, there's a version of me doing this exact recording. There's a version of me that's slightly different. A slightly more well-adjusted me, maybe a slightly less adjusted me, a slightly more successful me, maybe me that's worse off, me in a better position, me in a relation. Like, there's all these small variables in life. You know, maybe I'm a loser across the entire multiverse. That'd be interesting too. Highly improbable considering like the infinity and all that, so it's highly unlikely, but you know, there's a good chance a good chunk of me out there in the multiverse is a loser. But still, I just thought that was kind of a neat way of like talking about the multiverse, like, and like I said, in a very like, not cathartic, but a very like, there's a comfort to knowing that. And I guess maybe that's also what kind of got Tom thinking. I mean, it's that thing of, holy shit, you got hit with this, life, you have such little time left. Like, life sucks, life can be unfair, but also, once again, the poetic timing of just like, especially having that conversation in class about that, you know. But once again, having a friend like Jack who's saying like, nah, man, don't just take it lying down, like, fight, you know. So we'll see where things kind of go on that front. Currently, Jack's the only one that knows. I'm curious if he's going to, I mean, I'd assume he'd eventually tell the rest of the crew, Jen, Saul, and Augie as well. So we had that. Then we also have Clarence, who went to visit his wife, which I was like, oh, that sucks. Finding out he lost his wife to breast cancer. But unknown to him, he ends up running into the same woman that Augie ran into last episode. I mean, he doesn't know what she looks like because she wasn't on the camera footage, so he wouldn't recognize her immediately. But she's like, yeah, life is kind of unfair. And she talks about her dad dying. It's like, oh yeah, he died from a gunshot wound to being shot in the head. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. She's like, no, it's kind of a great way to go. It's quick. And I was like, that's kind of weird and a morbid conversation to have under these circumstances. But the fact that she went looking for Clarence seemed interesting. But when he left and he was kind of getting a weird vibe from her, I'm like, well, we know she came to Augie to get her to shut down like what she's working on. And other scientists, I guess, have run into her as well. So my brain was like, is she an alien? But then, like, why come to Clarence? It's like, well, because their investigation is going to unearth some stuff they have no business unearthing. I'd assume so, but she wasn't saying like, yo, you need to shut it down, because it's not like Clarence has saw the countdown yet. So I don't know, maybe she knows something's going to happen with Clarence and she just wants to meet him ahead of time. But the grave she was in front of, it was supposed to be like, oh, maybe this is her father's grave, but it turns out it's not. It's some little girl that died like early 1900s. I think her name was Edith, and she was only like 4 or something. So that's my immediate thought, but then I'm also like, is that supposed to say like maybe that's actually Edith and she's been alive this entire time type of situation? I doubt that. I think it was just meant to be like, she actually isn't here visiting her father's grave. That was some bullshit just so she could meet Clarence. Seems like that's the case. I don't know. Once again, there's a lot getting thrown at you, but we have had some steps and developments of kind of giving us a better idea of maybe what this is all about. To some extent, we're only 2 episodes in, 6 more episodes to go, so we haven't quite put all the pieces to the puzzle yet about what's really going on and what it's all about. But like I said, I feel like we're taking a few steps closer to the truth. So I'm excited to ultimately see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.